Oh, the Bucs are back, baby. The offense is back. Tom Brady is back, and Mike Evans is back. Woo! Before I get into my reaction, look at me. I'm already amped up. The playoffs are secure, back-to-back division titles. But again, before I get into my reaction, I am Rami B. If you are new here, make sure you click the subscribe button down below. I post weekly Buccaneer reaction videos, and as you can see, I'm back in my element. I apologize. The last three reactions I had, I was in Mexico for 2 of them, and then I was at the game at Arizona last week, which was definitely a struggle, very different than today's game. I kind of wish that what we saw today offensively is what I saw in person, but hey, a win is a win, and I was happy to be there and enjoy that game on Christmas night, I guess you could say, for Sunday Night Football. And yeah, and this game today, a 30-24 hard-fought win. It wasn't an easy win at all, but the elements of the Buccaneers that we've known and loved from 2020 to 2021 appeared today. We had 478 total yards of offense, 411 passing, and 67 rushing, while the Panthers only had 400 total yards of offense. I say only, 400 is a lot. 326 passing and 74 rushing. To me, their rushing numbers are low. Considering that they were up at one point 14-0 and 21-10, you'd think they would lean on the run more, but for some reason this game they decided to focus on passing and maybe catch us by surprise. I don't know. Sam Darnold apparently has been playing very well. I don't follow the Panthers that much, but from what he's played, what, 5-6 games all year and hasn't had any turnovers until today. But the Buccaneers did the best they could, and a very different result than when we played them 2 months ago or whenever that was. But offensively, Brady was 34-45 for 432 yards and 3 touchdowns. Brady played an outstanding game. This is vintage Brady. This is the Brady that we know and love. He also did have a rushing touchdown at the end of the game on the QB sneak. So 4 total touchdowns. But this Brady looked poised. It seemed like he was not afraid to take hits this game. He did get hit a lot. It seemed like he got sacked, I'm going to say 2 or 3 times. But he was standing in the pocket, delivering the ball to receivers, looking at Mike Evans. You know, Mike Evans before today needed 83 yards to get his 1,000 yards, and he got way past that, and I'm going to get into that in a little bit. The run game, 67 total yards rushing. Like I said, Lenny had 10 for 28, Rachaad White 11 for 22, Julio Jones had 1 for 13 on the end around, and then Brady had 3 QB sneaks for 4 yards. So not the best game in terms of rushing, but 67 yards rushing is good considering, you know, we threw for 411 yards. Mike Evans, like I said, 10 catches for 207 yards, which is 2 yards shy of his career high, which I want to say, it was 209. I want to say it was that rookie year against Washington when we had Josh McCown there. I want to say, I could be wrong. But he had 10 catches, 207 yards for 3 touchdowns. That puts him at 1,124 yards on the season, extending his streak to 9 consecutive seasons to start a career with 1,000 yards. Again, Randy Moss had that record with 6. Now Evans has surpassed it by 3 years. From my understanding, I didn't really check, but I think the only current receiver that is on track to start their career like that is Justin Jefferson, and he's only at 3 seasons. So as long as Evans keeps extending it, that streak is going to be pretty safe. Again, now he tied Tim Brown for the most consecutive 1,000-yard season just in general, not just to start a career, with, again, 9 for second all-time. Jerry Rice has the record with 11. So Evans just needs 2 more seasons of 1,000 yards, and he will tie Jerry Rice. And I feel like if he ties Jerry Rice or surpasses him, considering Evans already has a Super Bowl ring, and now in his career he's got what, 80-something touchdowns in an 9-year career. That speaks well. That speaks volume. And I think this stat not only is just skill based, because let's face it, 1,000 yards is not a lot to get. A lot of players get 1,000 yards, but it also speaks to the ability to stay healthy and maintain your body. And Evans, even though he's usually dinged up throughout seasons and misses a couple games, and even in 2019 he ended the season a couple games early with that hamstring, he was already well over 1,000 yards. I think a lot of luck goes into it to stay healthy as well. So, you know, Evans arguably, if not already, cemented himself as the greatest Buccaneer offensive player of all time. He should now for sure, and I hope that we get to keep him lifelong until he retires in Tampa and put him in the Ring of Honor immediately after he retires. But anyways, enough of that. Evans balled out again, loved it. 63-yard touchdown, 57-yard touchdown, and the other one I want to say is around a 40-yard touchdown. It seems like those plays are always there all season, but Brady just hasn't looked his way, and maybe now that he's seeing that, this opens things up, because let's be honest, we look like a much more dangerous offense, and this is good heading into the postseason. And, you know, like they always keep, I've seen a lot of analysts saying, does the Dallas Cowboys, would they rather face Minnesota or Tampa? I feel like anybody would rather face Minnesota. You don't want to go into Tampa and face Brady, and if our offense looks anything like this, we'd be a tough team to play. But anyways, Godwin was our second leading receiver, 9 catches for 120 yards, had a lot of yards after catch and a lot of tough catches as well. Russell Gage, 3 for 33. Nobody else really did much. K. Don had a few drops. Cole Keefs had a few drops. Very disappointing on their end. But K. Don did come up with one of our final drives. He jumped up high for a pass that probably would have been picked if he didn't get it. So yeah, offensively, like I said, we opened it up, started throwing deep. It seems like our offense, again, is built for deep passing, not this short dump off screens. We don't have the skill set or the players with the speed to kind of break those. Like, we're not like the Chiefs with the high speed players and things like that that'll get a lot of yards after catch. So we need to get those chunk plays, and when the opponent is feeling the threat of us throwing deep and having deep plays, they're gonna play it a little differently, and then it's going to open up things underneath as well. So again, the best offensive performance of the season, I would say, for us. The Chiefs game, we scored 31. We did score an extra point more than we did today, but we were down the entire game by 2 scores. And this one, even though we were down, it felt like the game wasn't necessarily out of reach, whereas with the Chiefs, it was like, this is going to be a shootout. Defensively, we held Sam Darnold to 23 of 37 for 3 touchdowns and a pick, and he also did have 2 fumbles, I want to say. There was a fumbled snap in the, I want to say, his late first half or early second half, and then at the end of the game that essentially gave us the game-clinching touchdown. Deonta Foreman, their running back, 13 carries for 35 yards. Darnold, 5 carries for 20. Nobody else had over 15 yards. And on the receiving end, they did have a good day in the back end. DJ Moore had 6 for 117 and a touchdown. Shi Smith, 4 for 70 and a touchdown. Hubbard, 3 for 53. And Tremble, 3 for 33 and a touchdown. So they were killing us in the air, which was surprising. I didn't think they'd go a lot to the pass. But, I mean, Antoine Winfield was in the slot a lot as usual. And although he's a pretty good slot player, he should not be on DJ Moore, who is the Panthers' best wide receiver. So I think that is something the coaching has to figure out. Put in a slot corner and let Antoine Winfield play safety. Don't put him on their best receiver. That's never going to work. We saw what happened in the playoffs last year with Cooper Kupp. Listen, no knock on Antoine Winfield. He's one of the best safeties in the NFL. Love the guy, but he is not a corner. So, yeah. Also, Winfield had a sack. Anthony Nelson had a sack fumble, and Sean Murphy-Bunting had a pick. It seemed like the pick came when the Panthers were going to try to return a score from ours. I think it was 7-14 at that point, and then we got a pick. So defensively, I think we played a great game overall. We got stops when we needed to. As it's been all year, we're getting stops as we need to, and then the offense just doesn't carry their end. But they did today. Special teams was a little bit of a struggle. Suckup he made 1 of 2 field goals. One of them was a 53-yarder or something like that. Again, stupid coaching decision to get that, and then he missed the extra point at the end, and we can't have that happening in the playoffs. I want to say a shout out to Camarda because of that punt at the end of the game where he botched it was too low, didn't get it, ran around to the left with his little speed, and then running left, he kicked it with his right, and we downed it at the 2 or 3. That literally saved the entire season for us, because had he not recovered that or gotten hit there and tackled, we would have been down right there, and then the Panthers would have gotten the ball at our 40 or 50, something like that, at the 50-yard line, and it would have been a whole different ball game. I know there was a flag for an ineligible player downfield, so we had to re-kick the ball, but it took off 11 seconds on the clock. So that was very good awareness on his end to run and try to punt it anyways, and still down it at the 2 or 3 was insane. But special teams continues to be a weakness for us. We're giving up, kick return yards and punt return yards. But I do want to shout out the team overall. We're winning in spite of our coaches. Brady is carrying this team on his back, and today he looked like vintage Brady, and Evans looked like vintage Evans. And next week we're playing Atlanta for nothing, essentially. I mean, we're 8-8 now. If we win, we're 9-8, have a winning record. If we lose, we're 8-9, losing record going into the playoffs. I personally don't think we should start the starters next week. We've had a lot of bad luck with injuries on our offensive line, wide receivers, defensive back, a lot of injuries. I think maybe if you want to play the starters, play them the first quarter, 1 or 2 drives, maybe a little bit into the second quarter. If you want to play the first half, sure, but I wouldn't tip off too much of different play calls and stuff. The game, again, is not necessary to win. Sure, you want to win it if you want to have the winning record, but Atlanta's got nothing to play for either. I would play them just for, we've had a lot of issues with rhythm this season and chemistry, so I'd play them a little bit just to keep that rhythm and chemistry in there. But essentially we're locked in the 4th seed. There's no way we get the 3rd seed, I don't think. And we are facing, it's going to be the Eagles or the Cowboys. Right now the Eagles lost to the Saints, and the Cowboys, they won on Thursday, so I think the Cowboys are back 1 game. The Eagles have to beat the Giants next week to secure the 1st seed. If they lose it, then the first seed could either be the Vikings or the Cowboys, depending on the Vikings game right now against the Packers, all of this stuff. But essentially, we are playing the Eagles or the Cowboys. Personally, I don't know if I would rather take the Eagles at home or the Cowboys. I think the Eagles would be easier for us to beat in Philly versus going to Dallas. I'd rather Dallas come to Tampa, and then if we win that, I think we would end up having to go to the Eagles if every other division winner wins or anything. But again, it's at this point, we don't know who we're going to face, but it's looking like it's going to be the Eagles or Cowboys. I don't think there's a way that it will be someone else, but who knows, maybe the way tiebreakers are and things like that. But yeah, first time in Bucs history to secure the division back-to-back. Which tells you how bad our division, how bad we've been historically. But again, we got 2 rings. A lot of teams can't even say that they have 1. So wonderful performance. Really happy that the game turned out that way. I will say at the end of the third quarter, it looked like it was going to be one of those games. We did have a lot of drives where, you know, that one drive where we got the pick, we drove it like 95 yards just to settle for a field goal, which ended up getting blocked. So yeah, not a good performance at all. But we ended up pulling it off as needed. Brady found some magic again, throwing to Evans, and hopefully we can keep that up going into the playoffs. I think, you know, we win that first game in the playoffs, and unless other wild card teams win, we are going to be traveling on the road, if all, you know, since we'll be the lowest seed. But you never know. Once we get in the playoffs and win a game, anything can happen at that point, right? We did it in 2020. We were the 5th seed, and we ended up going on, you know, three road games to get to the Super Bowl. So anything can happen if, you know, the playoffs are all about getting hot at the right time and injuries. If we're getting hot right now and our offense is, you know, blowing up, there isn't a lot of tape of this kind of offense. So defensive coordinators don't know if this is a fluke or the norm for, or will be the norm for us. So that works to our advantage. But anyways, instead of, you know, not wanting to keep this long, let's go. Let's go Tampa Bay. Division is secure. Next week doesn't matter. Time for the playoffs. Brady's last run, potentially Brady's last home game in the wild card round. So hopefully we can get a win, and that won't be Brady's last game with us, and we can continue it going, and maybe it'll convince him to stay. So who knows? But anyways, thank you, Buc Nation, for tuning in, and as always, I am out.
Let's go! You a Buccaneer fan? Let me know. Let me know. We about to win this thing at home. Let's go! Buccaneers.